I wish to thank the grace of heaven, the virtue of our predecessors and masters, and the compassion of our transmitters that I have this opportunity to continue my presentation on the questions based on the answers to the book on the answers to the truth. I guess the most important thing about why they include actually the questions inside the booklet of the book, okay, is because of the fact that one of the things that when you talk about the Tao, or you want to cultivate the Tao, one of the things that even Lecturer Liu in his lectures talk about, saying that you have to have faith, and then you have to have no doubts, right? You mentioned no doubts, not to have any doubts, let's put it that way, when you are trying to cultivate something that you believe in, okay? And so therefore, these questions are in a way fairly important. And we had, last time we had, start off with the first question, and we never finished the second question. Second question is, that what is the first thing to do for those who received Tian Tao and wants to advance? Okay, now, actually, what you see on the screen here is just a quick outline, but what I was concerned about is that when you the book that you have now is a little bit different from this one. This is the original version that we got. Okay, this one happens to be Jean's, by the way, because I noticed your handwriting. Okay.
You got my handwriting?
Yeah, it's got your handwriting in here. Okay, so anyway, the newer book that you're getting is the purplish print color, whatever, something like that.
White with purple print.
Yeah, white with purple print color book. It's basically the same thing without the Chinese. This one is bilingual. It has both the Chinese and the English. The one you'll see around, floating around every now and then, is just the English version, English portion of this book, really. They just took the book and tore it in half, and that's pretty much it. Okay, yeah, because the other book is much thinner than this one. Okay, so having said that, I wanted to go into these questions, or into this booklet, in more detail than what is outlined, only because the authors of this translation of the teacher's, if you will, revelation about these things, the heritage, the questions, the virtues, etc., the theories, etc., about the topics discussed. If you read the Chinese, even though I admit I don't necessarily understand the whole Chinese, but if you read it, it begins to differ somewhat from the English. Okay, I'm not saying that translation is wrong. Okay, so if you have this book, you can read it, but the way it is presented, the words the way it's written, it can give you a wrong idea. Okay, and so therefore you can deviate from what you think it's trying to say. Okay, that's the reason why I wanted to go through this in detail versus just having this outline here, because yes, it does talk about the main points, but it doesn't cover everything that the translation is trying to say. Okay, so the last time I did it is basically I had someone read it. Okay, Kerry was the one who had the first question, and I think Phoebe had the second one, or started the second one. But anyway, it's sort of like got a little bit dragged out, so therefore I thought maybe I'll just instead read it myself, and then we'll discuss the main points about it, and where is it that you could, you may misinterpret it, what it's trying to say. Okay, now I think I'm the only one who has this book, so okay, no choice.
Most people should have this book. It's very, very important.
This book is very good, okay, in the sense that if you...
Yeah, and then especially try to introduce all the concept to the new members. There's a lot of questions there.
Where can we get the book?
Well, that's the problem. We used to have a lot of them, but once it got distributed, it's gone. Even the purple one that I talked about, we used to order it and have a lot of here. It's all gone too.
Yeah, or we can scan it in.
Yeah, we'll probably scan it and create a file or whatever. Okay.
Dropbox, so everybody can download it.
Yeah, we'll try to scan in both the Chinese and the English.
Get both languages.
Yeah. If you can read both, that's good, because if you read the Chinese and really understand it, you'll see that, when you read the English translation, you can tell where it begins to deviate. Not deviate, but rather presented in a way so that you can have a wrong idea about what it's trying to translate. Okay, so anyway, without further ado, let me then continue on. We did question 37 last time. It goes to now question 38. There's a total of 25 questions, roughly 24, 25. Okay, so hopefully today I will cover more than just one. Okay, so the question that is posed is, what is the first thing to do for those who receive Tian Dao or the Dao and wants to advance? So the first part we covered last week was basically to say that you need to have faith. Faith is the foundation of Dao practice, and faith is the foundation of building up merits. Okay, so, but in order to have faith, you have to erase doubts, right? Because if you have doubts, then it's hard to have this faith or conviction in the faith. Okay, so therefore, the first thing one should do is basically to be able to ask questions to be able to satisfy those doubts. Okay, now there's some parts of it that I don't see as too related to the faith aspect, but here he talks about that. The rest of the interpretation or translation talks about how, all humans were born equal. The saints and the ordinaries all possess the same true selves from heaven and bear souls in their bodies. The difference between the saints and the ordinaries lies in the difference of the state of awakening to Tao. So really that's why Buddha has said before, he said, you and I are the same, but the difference is that what? I'm awakened to the fact that I have this Buddha nature. You have not yet done that. Okay, so that's what it's talking about. All phenomena surrounding us occur in the same manner as in our body. So basically, he's just now trying to relate how we as people, in fact, our whole universe in a way, relates to certain, are similar in certain ways. Okay, the spherical shape of our head resembles the heavenly bodies, while our flat feet stand on the flat earth. Okay. Every inhaling and exhaling of our breath is the manifestation of yin and yang, or yang and yin. While our left eye symbolizes the sun, the right eye does the moon. The 5 vital organs, the heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys, correspond to the 5 fundamental elements of fire, wood, earth, metal, and water, respectively. Emotions expressed as delight, rage, sorrow, and joy reflect weather conditions of breeziness, thunder, cloudiness, and drizzle. Okay. Virtue is in a man also mirrored the sequence in creation. Benevolence parallels the beginning. Propriety is cultivation. Justice is reward. And wisdom is perseverance. Okay. So I guess these aspects, I admit, it's kind of hard to relate to what it has to do with faith, which is the topic of the main topic of this question here. But in a way, it's just trying to relate to us that we even physically, our phenomena around us, have certain relationships. Okay, and then a newborn infant is united with heaven and earth. Great saints like Emperor Yao, Emperor Sun, Confucius, and Mencius were born like the ordinary. We are all born the same. Those who live in accordance to their true selves become immortals, Buddhas, or saints. Actually, those who live against the true selves become evil spirits and ghosts. Okay, so here's a little bit, it says that those who live against the true selves, essentially we're talking about those that not just don't cultivate themselves, but rather the fact that they are actually in conflict with aspects that was mentioned above, like the propriety, the benevolence, etc. Okay, so to practice Tao, one must follow his true self. This is the unalterable truth. Unalterable truth. Okay, so again, this question here really talks just about faith. It's really talking just about faith. So again, the main point here is, yes, it is the foundation of Tao practice, and of course, it is the fountainhead for building up merits, because it is, after all, as I mentioned last week, that faith is what can make you do things that sometimes are beyond your own abilities. Okay, you've heard, some people, like a good example is like sometimes you hear in the news how, I read this one somewhere in the news, they're saying that, how a person who was pinned under a car, and then it was a child or whatever, and the mother really lifted, somehow had the ability to lift up the car enough to get the person out. Okay, and that seems normally impossible. But again, certain things happen. Some people call it a miracle. Others call it just really good effort. Okay, so anyway, the point is that yeah, faith is something that can allow one to really overcome many obstacles that you may encounter. In fact, things that you would consider sometimes impossible, okay, can be done. Okay, the example of a mountain I mentioned earlier in Digging Eternal last week, similar. Okay, so any questions about this faith aspect?
Okay, well, the faith, yeah, so you have to talk, faith really is talking about, it's not faith in some,
Object or
yeah, faith in some object or form or something like, I have faith in God. I mean, that's true, but God is within us. Okay,
Right.
so all right, so, or I have faith in Jesus, or, faith in someone, some external, some form that is changeable and whatever. So this faith is really the internal faith, right? That you can say it's confidence. I mean, at some level you can talk about it. It's self-confidence. But it's really that faith when it's your true self, your
Right.
true nature. It's the manifestation or the expression of your true nature. So the genuine true self. Okay, so that's really what it is. So that's why a lot of times I always say this faith is really that true sincerity. Okay, so that's the expression of that true self. Okay.
It's like when you are centered, well, you say centered, I mean, because you have to give a direction, centered, or you can say at one with your Buddha nature, then that faith is immovable, is immense, it's unlimited. You can say that. Get it? Because it comes from your Buddha nature, from the essence. It has to be based on that essence. Or you can say Buddha nature. Get it? By true nature. So it's not faith relying on anything else. Get it? So it's independent. It's, in other words, it's non-conditional, non-conditioned faith. So you can say, I have faith in God. That's conditioned. You say there's a God, so therefore I have faith. Right? This is non-conditional. Oh.
But the God in you.
Yeah, we call it God in you. Yeah, I mean, because we say that's the true nature. Our Buddha nature is it's part of God. You can say it's part of God, or came from God, or something like that. Okay, so it's like, that faith is part of our 常住真心. Okay, it's part of that. That's the Surangama Sutra says that. And Nirvana Sutra says, I forgot, but anyway, doesn't matter, something like that, okay? So it's that type of faith.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Like your time mentioned. Yes.
I know for most people already pretty knowledgeable and already do good level of knowledge. But for new members, it takes a lot of effort to get there, to have that trust and faith today. Because it might take years for them to build up this faith and trust, because they come a long way. Everybody come from different backgrounds, different cultures, right? And then take a lot of effort to get there, especially for new. Sometimes I feel more and more today, because I'm in Texas now. And we have one neighbor came to class every week. We saw very sincere. Then he's an Indian. The person is from India. We think she must be very understand all those stuff. But after a few months, one day he talked about the reason he liked the class because he thinks you guys are good people. Okay, but from our point of view, we think he knows he had a face with all those Buddhas, all those stuff. But sometimes they like to come to temple because they know we are good people with a big smile, right? So they feel warm.
Yeah, so not necessarily because they understand what you're talking about.
Take a few months for me to realize, wow, you gotta be careful, right? For new people, take a lot of effort to get there, because they do not know about Tao, right? They do not know Buddha nature. They have no clue. So take effort for us to build a trust and faith, step by step to get there. Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe the translation, actually, when you say faith, I would say parentheses, is the non-conditioned faith. Get it? So that means, what does non-conditioned faith mean? That I don't rely on the Quran. I don't have to rely on the Quran. I don't have to rely on the Diamond Sutra. I don't have to rely on any dharma or any form or object or thing. You know, see, that's not easy. Obviously, most people don't know what that means. So, what's a non-conditioned faith? Duh. I don't know. I mean, what is it? I don't know.
They're tools.
Yeah, it's like unconditional love. Yeah, you can give that example. Yeah, you can give that example.
The sutras and the dharmas and the scripture, they're tools for
Right,
us to
right,
go
right,
there.
right.
the end.
They're pointing you in that direction. Right, right. So that's why people say, "Well, I have faith in God." That's like relying on God. Then show me God. You can't show it. So that's why so that faith means a lot. Okay, that faith is really the centerpiece. Okay, that unconditioned faith. That maybe we should qualify it, explain it. It's the unconditional faith based on our Buddha nature. You can say that, or that arises. Maybe that's a better term. Arises from our Buddha nature when we are at one with the Buddha nature. Okay, that would be the true faith.
Okay, any other comments? Anybody who don't quite understand what we just said?
It's too deep, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, in general, when we talk about faith, okay, to have faith, we say, because faith here is a noun, right? It's talking about an object. Yeah, we tend to think of it that, okay, it must be something that you must have to create a motivation, right? Because if you have faith in something, then you can become motivated to do something, okay, about it based on your faith, okay. But lecture Tai had also mentioned the fact that, well, your faith points to what? Your Buddha nature. It's actually talking about your Buddha nature, okay. So yes, and on the one hand, we say, oh, you have faith in God. It's very much like saying you have faith in yourself. Okay, and that's why he mentioned he used the idea of confidence. Confidence in yourself. Okay.
But you got to qualify what that self is.
Yeah,
People think faith in self is my conscious mind.
Right.
That's wrong.
Yeah, it's your Buddha nature,
Absolutely
right?
wrong.
Yeah.
Because I'm a PhD. I know a lot of things. I know a lot of things more than any of you guys. Okay, you peons. So I have faith in myself. That faith is false. It's based on knowledge,
Yeah.
learning. Duh. So we're sixth patriarch. Look at sixth patriarch. He had no education. No education. He didn't even go to school. He can't read ABC. Okay, he can't read ABC.
There's no ABC.
Okay, all right, you're right. You're right. And yet, look at his faith. Right? Look. Hear what he said. Right? I mean, then let me ask you. Does that what he said or wrote or whatever? Did that require education, PhD level education? Absolutely not. See? So it's independent. So that faith or his, you can say knowledge, in this case, okay, knowledge or his wisdom is independent of book learning. Huh? Get it? Of some paper degree, okay? Independent, right? Or not reliant, not coming from there. Make sense? So where did it come from? Where did it come from? Out of the air? Out of thin air? From his Buddha nature. Make sense? So that's evidence of Buddha nature. Get it?
Yeah, come back to how did he get to the level he was before? Because he went through so many lives of cultivation before that. Okay, like all of us, just to be here, we went through so many lives of cultivation to be here. We will not be able to jump to come here overnight. So the same thing. I think that's to get to the Buddha nature level. We are very lucky in this time. If 10 years ago, I just talked to the other gentleman. I remember 10 years ago, I didn't know what Buddha nature means. Okay, because last 10 years before, 10 years of the last 20 years, 10 years before last 20, Buddha's holy teacher always talk about all those stuff. And I think I understand, but I don't understand. I don't have clue what they are talking about. So we are lucky enough, last 10 years, Holy Qigong teacher talk about Buddha nature. They asked the lecturer to talk us for the Buddha nature class. But we never had that 10 years ago. So the first 10 years, I I've been here more than 20 years. The first 10 years I've been cultivating, I have no clue. No clue. Always talk about outside the form, all this stuff for 10 years. Then suddenly, Holy teacher asked lecturer to talk about Buddha nature. I said, wow, this all Buddha talking about all the time. For 10 years, I have no clue, do not understand at all. So we are very lucky group. Very, very, not every other temple talk about Buddha nature. No. Yeah, not everybody, believe me. Okay, that's what happened today. You look at Chongde, they have millions Tao members, but there only a few people are studying Buddha nature class. I can tell you that. Only a few people we study Buddha nature class. So we are, sometimes I look back, we are fully lucky group. You know.
So yeah, so to finish it off, to finish off, I'd like to basically just mention the fact that in this question it's talk about faith, okay, and we relate it, we say it's our Buddha nature, right? So the first thing for those who receive Tian Dao or the Dao, the blessing, and wants to advance, is one can answer by saying to know your true nature or to know your Buddha nature. That will be the answer, okay, in one quick question. But of course, to know your Buddha nature, as Transparent Lin points out, there is a process by which you can get there. Because after all, you don't immediately get that the minute you receive the blessing or the Tian Dao. So there's a process by which you get to that point. Okay, so therefore, yes, it comes down to a lot of studying, learning, cultivation, etc. Okay, so that's basically that's why it talks about the fact that it's the fountainhead of building up merit, because there's also a process that you have to go through. Okay, it isn't immediately known that, oh, okay, you receive the blessing. Oh, I know my true nature already. Well, it would be great if you can. Even Transmitter mentioned that some people can do that, and again, that is based upon what? Previous lives of cultivation. Okay, so therefore, again, to get to that point of realization, you have to also previous lives of process to get to that point. Okay, so everything does have a process. Okay, Buddhism talks about the fact that how each one of us, well, they say there's a very well-known saying that Buddhism, they say you can achieve enlightenment in an instant, or you can achieve enlightenment through 1,000 lifetimes. Now, what all they're saying is the fact that each one of us, because of our own karmas, have many lives before us, and that we, at this particular life, are at different stages of that process. Okay, because let's just say it actually does take 1,000 years, 1,000 lifetimes to achieve enlightenment. So a person who has cultivated for 1,000 lifetimes, and on the 1,000th lifetime, after 999, on this particular lifetime, yes, he does achieve enlightenment. Okay, but for others who are starting out year one, they're not going to achieve enlightenment, but yet they can get the same information or receive the same Tao or whatever you want. But because they are at different stages of their process of enlightenment, okay, you do have different understandings of what is presented as, in terms of the Tao. And so therefore you will only have different, I guess you could say, ways of different levels of knowledge and wisdom. Okay, the sixth patriarch, like Transmitter Lin says, he became enlightened in that particular life is because he had cultivated before. Just as the Buddha himself has said that, correct? Buddha has said what? He was before what? So many different animals, so many different lives, etc. And then in this particular one, he became the Buddha. Okay, so who knows? Maybe in the next life, one of us whichever was has already many cultivated past lifetimes will become a Buddha next lifetime. Who knows? Okay, so whether we can achieve or become a Buddha or not in this particular lifetime is really dependent upon the past. Okay, it's not something that comes instantaneously. Okay, because there is a progression that occurred before. There are prior conditions that had played itself out. Okay, so if there's nothing else, let me continue on the next one. Question: what are the effects after one receives the Tao? As one receives Tian Dao, his right portal, correct portal is pointed out, and consequently his wisdom is opened up. If one can sincerely act according to Tao, God forgives all sins and trespasses he committed before. Therefore, one lives in harmony on earth and can escape catastrophes and disasters. Upon death, He lives in peace, and his soul transcends the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, as well as avoids the judgments in hell. The greatest effect of attaining Tao is the latter, transcending the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. We wish all practitioners of Tao to awake to Tao and accelerate their development so they can attain enlightenment and peerage. Okay, well, here we're talking about opening 170 portal and wisdom eye. If one repents, performs merits, and lives a virtuous life, then one can escape disasters, leaving the world in peace to transcend the cycle of life and death. Okay, there's a couple of things that here it's sort of like can be misleading. One is the fact that, yeah, it is true that, yes, upon receiving the Tao, your heavenly portal is opened. Okay, so in other words, as we would like to say in the Tao, that yes, our spiritual nature, when we transcend this physical self, you go through that door. Okay, again, that is just a way of making it easier for us humans to be able to understand. Okay, it is true that also, this. Why is it that our wisdom is also opened up? Because our Buddha nature. Okay, because by unlocking that door, there's now access to that, if you will. Not access, I'll use the word access for now. Access our Buddha nature. And the manifestation of that Buddha nature through our mind is wisdom. Okay. If the Buddha nature manifests itself. Okay. So that's why we talk about sometimes how wisdom is different than knowledge. We all understand that difference between wisdom and knowledge, right? Knowledge can be learned, acquired, etc. However, wisdom is what? Something that's innate within you. That yes, takes into account all the knowledge that one has acquired. It's not to say it ignores that knowledge. No, it still makes use of that knowledge. But it is something that is sort of like beyond the conclusive methods of knowledge. Okay, I say that means that sometimes how do we make decisions? Ask yourself, how do we make decisions? We think about, we evaluate it. We evaluate the situation. We assess something, and what that something is, how we assess it is based on what? What we know about it, right? And what we know about is based on what knowledge we have about that, correct? Okay, so therefore, in a way, we do use a lot of knowledge, okay? But how is it that we come to a conclusion of all those information? Today is like saying, in the computer world, they talk about big data. Big data, you've heard the term? It's like they gather so much information and just so much for even humans to be able to process or evaluate it. So they try to come up with super programs called, super AI. I don't know if you've heard of that too. Super AI is basically programs that allow the computer to gather all this information, and from that make some conclusion out of that. If you heard, you heard the program by IBM, it's called. I don't know what it's called now. I forgot, but it's it plays. No. That's for chess. But this one plays Jeopardy. Does anybody know the game Jeopardy? Jeopardy?
Sure.
Jeopardy is basically a game where the answer is provided, but you have to provide the question to that answer to get to that answer. And the computer beat out everybody, and also the world champ of Jeopardy.
Yeah.
The computer beat him out. Okay, it's like chess too. Now
Program.
Kasparov, who is now the world champion, is now Carl Magnusson or something like that. But anyway, but he hasn't played a computer yet. But Kasparov did, and he lost over a period of several games. Okay.
Yeah, quite a few.
The point here is this: is that because you have it is true that one can make a decision based on all this knowledge. Okay. But wisdom does not take into that account. In fact, wisdom sometimes bypasses all this processing. Okay. In fact, it doesn't necessarily, I qualify that by saying necessarily, it doesn't necessarily require the information, but it can rely on the information to come to a conclusion. And that conclusion is not through a method of processing the information, gathering it, making comparison and all that. It comes about almost instantaneously, that decision. And that is why the concept of what we in Buddhism call 当下. The concept of 当下 means at the moment. I guess that's how you translate 当下, at the very moment.
Right moment.
In the moment, at the moment.
At the right moment.
Yeah, at that moment. Yeah, at that moment. In other words, it doesn't require you to say, okay, let me step back, let me evaluate it, okay, and then come up with conclusion. Okay, so and that is where essentially what we call wisdom. Okay, so in a way, wisdom can still rely on the information, but doesn't have to. But yet it comes up with something that's at the moment, without having the process. Yes.
I was going to mention that wisdom, or the divine wisdom, is called Bola.
Yeah, Bola.
Bola, yeah, we call it Bola. Yeah, we call it.
There's no translation, but that's
Well,
Yeah.
that's called Mahaprajna.
Yeah, is the, if you want to use Sanskrit, yeah, the Indian pronunciation is prajna.
Yeah, Mahaprajna.
Well, Mahaprajna is great wisdom. Yeah, Maha is great, and prajna is wisdom.
It's profound.
Yeah, yeah.
Profound,
So,
right.
yeah, we use a word called prajna.
But another way of putting it is called 造见. 造见. 造见.
that has yeah, it's the same. It has a tool with it.
Yeah, 造见 just means
So-
it's, well, no, 造见
it's
is the
got the-
result. It's gonna say it's the
Right.
result.
It has the manifestation
Yeah.
from the Buddha nature.
Yeah.
造见. So it, but 造见bypasses all cognitive reasoning
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, it skips that
Such as
process of evaluation
Deductive
I mentioned.
reasoning, Sherlock Holmes, right? Deductive reasoning or inductive reasoning, like scientists, Einstein.
It's a little bit same as when you said 限量.
Yeah. Similar.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
It's basically
Yeah, yeah, that's-
intuitive
yeah.
knowing.
Right.
It's just, there's no thinking involved.
You just know it.
It
It's like you just
sits
know it.
there, I mean,
You just know it.
the
It's
answer,
weird.
That's
whatever.
限量.
yeah.
力量 is going through some process.
Yeah.
Thought
So
process.
限量 means just instant. It's like instant knowledge.
Yeah.
Instant.
Yeah. So
It's
that's
noumenon, it's
yeah.
internal
It's
knowing, it's
instant
not
knowledge.
based on
or
any
whatever.
external
Yeah.
knowledge. or anything.
yeah. So that is why that is the difference between
Or
what is
process.
wisdom versus what is knowledge. Okay. Okay. Lecture Kai mentioned about PhDs and all that. That's basically that's acquired knowledge. Okay. But what you can do with it, okay, you can do with it by saying, oh, I can evaluate the information, etc. Whereas with wisdom, it can make use of the knowledge. You can still have the knowledge there, but it does not. It's sort of like bypasses all that process. Okay, it just comes instantaneously, if you will. A conclusion or something, a result. Okay.
Use the slang,
Yeah.
it's almost like a gut feeling.
Yeah, some people like to say it's a gut feeling. Yeah, you could.
Sixth
Yeah,
sense.
it's almost a like or a
Sixth
sixth sense. Yeah, you
They
could call it that.
somehow-
Yeah, it just
Something it's telling them,
Yeah.
to either not do this or something, something.
to come up with a
Something-
conclusion one way or the
something
or
it's
decision
telling
one way or the
To
other.
do-
Or to
create
do or whatever,
karma
just
afterwards.
to avoid this or that,
Right.
something,
Yeah.
you have that feeling. People say it's a feeling.
Let me give you an
Gut.
experience that I had, a personal experience that I had when I was in school. Okay, in high school. Okay, and this is kind of weird too. We were taking the class was taking a test, and in the test there was one particularly very difficult question. Okay, I think I may have mentioned this story before. One particular very difficult question. So what happened is that I saw the question, I said, oh, I skipped it, it was too tough, so I finished the rest of the test. And then I went back to that question. And I kept thinking, and I still couldn't figure out what it was. And then right before I think it was just right before, or at the very moment when the teacher said, okay, time's up, hand in your test. I immediately wrote down an answer. Okay, just the answer, just the result of the question. And I handed it in, okay. And when the teacher eventually, after grading it all that, started handing it back. And in my class, this is chemistry, by the way, AP chemistry or something like that. And in our class, there's sort of like a nerd, a well-known nerd. She's sort of like the well-known nerd of the class in the sense that, she always gets A's and all that stuff.
Nerd.
Even I don't get those grades like A's and all that. But there's one, and the teacher, the way she hands out the test is the fact that she goes by the lowest score first, and eventually whoever has the score gets the last piece of paper.
That's embarrassing.
I know.
Well,
So-
lower score could be a B.
Yeah,
you know?
right. It's just a low score. It doesn't mean, it's a bad score or whatever. So anyway, and usually almost everybody knows that she's going to get the last call. Okay. So they're going on, and then when almost everybody except for myself and her were the only two left that has not gotten called, she sort of like looked at me and I sort of looked at her, and then we looked at the teacher, and then she called her name, and she was like surprised because she should have been the last one to get it. She got back, and then I got called, and I was the last paper, so I got the highest score. And then, so what was the reason why? The reason why was because I was able to answer that very difficult question. Okay, but here's the thing. She wrote a comment on my answer. She goes, "How did you arrive at this answer?" And I had no idea. Literally.
I guess.
No, because all I did was that at that time when I was stumped on that question, I literally was stumped. And then at the very moment when she called it, I saw like, something just popped in my head. I was like, oh yeah, it should be this. And that was it. Okay, now whether that's wisdom or whatever, I have no idea. Okay, but the point is that in a way, wisdom sort of like sometimes act like that. Okay, the same thing happens when I was at work. Sometimes when I was working, as an engineer, and I'm presented with a very difficult engineering problem that other people don't want to look at or whatever. Sometimes I would be able to come up with something. Okay, now whether that's the best solution or not, I have no idea. But sometimes the solution does come to me sort of like just out of the blue. Okay, but anyway, those are just some personal experiences that I'm sure all of you may have also. Okay, so like some of you said, that maybe it's just sometimes a gut feeling that you think it is, and it just pops out. Okay, but important thing is that this wisdom, I guess, it's really dependent on the situation and the circumstance. Like I said, the question was a chemistry question, so it requires still my understanding of chemistry or whatever to come up with an answer to reply it in chemistry terms, if you will. Okay, so in a way, your wisdom still can make use of that knowledge that you have. Okay, but in certain situations, you don't need that knowledge. You can still come up with some answers because, after all, certain situations does not require a lot of data, if you will. Okay, so anyway, that's just an example. Okay, so hopefully all of you can, get to the point of, manifesting your wisdom. Let's do it that way. Okay. So, all right. So, anyway, there's no other questions. Okay. So basically, here it talks about there's a few things I want to point out. Okay. So your wisdom, that's what it's meant by opening up. But whether you can actually tap into that wisdom is another question. Okay. I'll be honest. When I received the Tao, I was told that I was only like 4 or 5 years old. Even then, I don't remember when. So obviously, at 4 or 5, I'm not gonna care whether I go through the blessing or not. I just want to get it, whatever. You do what you're told because your parents tell you to do it, and then as soon as it's over, you're back to what you were. Okay. So, and for some people, when we talk to them about the Tao, and then how good to get the blessing is, how we say, oh, your wisdom door is open up to that. Sometimes you have to be a little careful about that because in a way it creates some form of expectation from them to say, okay, I should feel something or I should sense something. Some people do, some people don't. So for the people who don't, they may say, okay, what just happened? Okay, all right, and you don't really feel anything. And that's true. That can be true because the fact that just because your accessibility to your wisdom, is now there, it still relies on you to go through a process sometimes to have that, to acknowledge, I would call it, acknowledge that wisdom that is manifested. Okay, because in the Tao, we talk about the fact that, especially Lecturer Liu talks about the fact that we have a self who we think is us. Okay, but in truth, our self, what most people consider as our self is not what? Our true self, okay? Because our Buddha nature self, if you will, is there. But the question is whether we sort of like ignore it or pay attention to it is a different story. Because Lecturer Liu talks about the fact that we need to not let our human self ignore our Buddha nature self, because the Buddha nature self is still there, and the Buddha nature self will not compete with our human self to say, hey, you should do this, not that, etc. Okay, because Lecture Liu makes a point about that, right? He says, he will not compete. So the idea is the fact that he tells us that we need to learn how to listen, if you will, or pay attention to that Buddha nature self. And he emphasized the fact that, the method that he sort of like emphasizes to what? 望眼放下，一念不生. Okay, meaning Chinese meaning that to not be,
Let go of all karmic.
let go of all karmic
Affinity.
affinities, thoughts, whatever, and just
Not give rise.
not to be influenced by those things. Okay, and if you can do all that, eventually you will hear the voice, if you will, of your Buddha nature, the manifested Buddha nature, which is your wisdom, which is what I call wisdom. Okay, so now how do you get to that point? Again, it's a process. He talks about letting go, etc. So I don't know. Have anybody practiced that, by the way? Just curious. Okay. And what happened? The results. Any results?
You have a stronger sixth sense.
Oh, you have a strong.
Yeah, that's the first thing that
okay.
come up.
Well, if you're aware of that, that's good. But all I'm saying is
That's what I'm
that
saying, that's your wisdom coming out.
yeah, right.
You see? That's the,
Because the manifestation of your Buddha nature is really, quote unquote, you can call it wisdom. Okay. So, all right. So anyway,
Question.
yes.
A couple of points I want to make. First point, we always ask people to receive that blessing. We tell people you can go back after that. But Holy Teacher mentioned to us, especially for the transmitting masters, don't forget to tell them they have to cultivate.
Right.
Because that's very important, right? It's not just you receive that blessing, you have to cultivate. Okay, that's
Yeah,
very critical.
that's why in the second sentence here, you have to also be careful.
Yeah.
He says, God forgives all sins and trespasses for the people who committed before. Okay, and once in harmony with earth, he can escape catastrophes, disasters, and upon death, he goes peacefully and he transcends cycle of life and death. Okay,
Second point I want to make this. Holy Teacher said, how far are we away from the heaven? How far are we away? How far are we away? It depends on our worries. How much worry do we have? How much thought do we have? Okay? If we have all those worry, attachment,
yeah, it's essentially those are
we-
attachments.
as much as we have, the further we are. So you can see a lot of people very pure. You see Nepalese, they're much purer, right? You see that some people, some area very poor in the world, but they are very pure. Means they are closer than, sometimes they are closer than we are in this situation.
Yeah, it has to do with the concept that Buddhism talks about in the forms, what is called form. We say 四相, okay,
Yeah.
the forms, okay. Because a thought is a form. Okay, now most of people think of form as something that's tangible, that's physical, but no. In the concept of the Buddhist form, it's really including thoughts. Okay, those are forms also. Okay, so now here it goes. Now it is true that in the Tao, he says here, Tao forgives all sins and trespasses that one has made. The wording itself is correct in the sense if you understand that sins and trespasses, okay, are not created karmas. Okay, meaning because in the Tao in the Tao community we do have what is called repentance ban. 忏悔班, we call it 忏悔班. Okay, repentance classes. Okay, yeah, classes ban. Right. Okay, repentance classes. In the sense.
We only attended once in last 20 years.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
I
I
know.
attended twice.
Right, you're lucky.
Yeah, it's not often that these are held.
No, I don't think
Okay.
they have.
Yeah, right.
We
You
have
probably
one
don't
here.
have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because repentance classes are a time when you can actually request you can request forgiveness of all your sins, but sins and trespasses. But the sins and trespasses only refer to your transgressions and sins relating to literally, I mean, to put it simply, the rules and regulations. Okay, because any created karma that you have done, it's like saying, I have a very bad karma with somebody. Okay, let's say, for example, it doesn't mean that that is forgiven, because your karma is still there. That's why you have to be careful about when you read this, because on the surface it seems like, oh, okay, all my karma, all my bad karma is taken care of. No, because what the Buddhists always tell us, that they even cannot interfere with your karma. They can try to manage it, but they can't interfere with it. Okay, so therefore, these sins and transgressions, the things. Let's say, for example, okay, today I did I present my class, and then normally, the rules and regulations, you should be respectful. You should always honor the predecessor, the whatever. So that's why at the beginning we all say what, I thank the grace of heaven and the virtue of our predecessor, that whatever, right? So we say all those things at the beginning because you could say it's a formality. Okay, that's true, but it's a way to pay respects to the Buddha and saying, let's say I skip that. Okay, that's a transgression in a sense. Okay, so one of the saints and Buddhas will have a red mark on my for that. Okay, so say he missed that. He didn't follow the rules and regulations. Okay, so anything that in a way that you transgress with the Buddhas and saints or whatever, yes, that could be quote essentially stated as the sins and trespasses that we have done. But anything that you do as a karmic is different. Okay, now those transgressions that I just mentioned with the Buddha and saints, you can say it's part of karma. Yeah, in the general term, yes, it's all under the envelope of karma or the umbrella of karma. But there are certain aspects of it that is created karma that does not get abolished or wiped clean, because that is things that you have to resolve yourself or through merit. If by asking the Buddha and saints to try to manage this karma for you by paying back. If karma is very slight, then yes, we may be able to quote unquote pay it back with our merits. Okay, but for some karmas, it cannot. That's why today we get sick, we see people get into accidents or whatever. That's the reason why. For a fact that it doesn't get paid back. You can't pay it back. Okay? So that's why us, especially as cultivators, or us who have received the blessing, see, there's actually, on the one hand, it's a two-edged sword. On the one hand, it's good because you can now have the opportunity to transcend the cycle of life and death. On the other hand, your karmas, past life karmas, start coming looking for you earlier than you would expect. Because why? After all, in this lifetime, we can transcend, right? But what is the karmic debt that you have supposed to occur in your next life? But you're not coming back for the next normal life. Okay? You're not coming back. So what happens to that karma? Oh, it's abolished? No. It's still there. And guess what? That guy wants paid back now earlier because he knows he can't get it back later. So that's why sometimes, and that's one of the questions eventually posed, was why is it that people who receive this blessing, sometimes also things happen to them. Now, part of it is based on our own deeds. For example, in the Tao, we can do uplifting and all that stuff. Uplifting is where you take a dead person's spirit and have them receive the blessing, but then you take on their karma. Okay, so given the fact that that person is no longer suffering for their karma, now you have to suffer for that karma, right? And so therefore what? Those spirits come after you. So that's why certain people,
Something happens.
good, bad. Normally bad happens earlier than you would expect, or normally would not have to have suffered that. It's because now you have taken on more karma. Okay, so yeah, again, this sins and transgressions does not relate to those bad karma. Right, okay. And then the other thing about one lives in harmony and escape catastrophes and all that. Actually, you know what? And I didn't want to say it last class because Andrew had not received a blessing. Okay, and I didn't want him to discourage from doing the blessing, because in essence, Holy Teacher also told us what? That we can transcend the cycle of life and death, right? Okay, in other words, normally if, let's say, after 100 years, I will probably have to come back again. Let's assume a normal person, let's assume we know his reincarnation schedule, okay? And let's say normally 100 years later, after I passed away this life, I would have to be reborn again. Now, we don't have to do that. We don't have to have that anymore because we receive the blessing, right? Okay. But what if I say, okay, let's talk about 1,000 years, or 10,000 years, or 100,000 years? What happens then? Is it still the same or not? Any answers? See, on the one hand, it sounds very discouraging. Okay, because the answer is that Holy Teacher only says that at least you will have what? 10,800 years of non-reincarnation. But why come up with a number? Why come up with 10,000 years? Well, it just so happens to be one of the cycle, one of the stages of the different cycles. Okay, which I think Lecture Tai had talked about before. Okay, but why just one cycle? Why not 20,000 years or 30,000 years? Why? Okay, it because it happens to be each cycle is 10,000 something years. But wait a minute, we were supposed to be able to transcend the cycle of life and death. But how come I have to come back again, maybe come back again, after 10,000 years? It's very discouraging, right? What do you think? So what you're then saying is that, wait a minute, didn't you say that you forever, I don't have to reincarnate?
No, that's not
No,
true.
that's not true. That's why we don't say that. Exactly.
Say that.
We don't say forever.
No, because just because you received a blessing doesn't mean all your previous karma is wiped clean. No, of course not. So there's no guarantee because we don't know because we're not Buddhas, right? So we can't see the infinite past, right? That God knows, how many lifetimes we existed. Probably billions and zillions of lifetimes. Who knows, right? Right? So because our Buddha nature never dies, right? It's always eternal. So so it's got to be someplace, right? So even a Buddha has previous karmas, that come into into existence in their present life. Like Buddha got a headache whenever when he I don't know whether because when he was a kid many lives.
Wait, I'm sorry. Let me cut it short. Okay, so it sounds very discouraging, right? Okay. However, there's a silver lining to it. At the same time, there is an aspect of it that allows you to truly understand that yes, you can, quote unquote, forever not transcend. Okay, but it's that concept is a little bit very difficult to understand. Okay, all right. When we're in this life as cultivators, you are what? You learn what? Why is it? That's why it's so important to learn about the Tao. Why is it that you can still do what I mentioned? This forever aspect. It's because when you receive this Tao, you have the opportunity to learn how is it that you truly can achieve that forever. You can achieve it if you cultivate. Okay. And you have to learn to cultivate. And what we can do is, in the Tao community, we say what? There's something called merits. We call it merits. Okay, you do things, that acquire merits. So what it tells you is that after you receive the Tao, you truly have a way to use merit to try to pay back, if you will, maybe all of your debts or some of your debts. Not necessarily all, depending upon the degree of karma that you have in the past. Because some will require you to really still die or get sick or whatever. Okay, but the point is that you do have a way. Okay, so you learn. But truly, if you think about it, okay, if you try to for a moment step back and think. Okay, let's say you become a Buddha. Let's just say that you become a Buddha. Okay, now as a Buddha, you know everything. You're God, like God. Okay. And then you know the fact that, yeah, I'm now a Buddha. I've reached a state of true bliss, in, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, at the same time, you're aware of what? There's what? Still people. Because after all, you came from them, right? That's how you became a Buddha.
Suffering.
Yeah, how you became a Buddha, you're still aware of. You're still aware of how you became a Buddha. Given the fact that you've reached or a level, like the level of a Buddha, what would you really, as a Buddha, do?
You come
Do
down
we
to
just
save them.
be yourself and or would you what?
Come back around down here.
Come
Try
back
to
again.
help those? Because after all, as a Buddha, what's the most important thing about the Buddha, really? Because the sixth patriarch mentioned it. He uses the word gongde. Gong means literally, I guess merit, you want to call it merit, or effort, is what? Is knowing seeing your Buddha nature.
Yeah, your Buddha nature.
And de is what? Which translates to virtue, literal translation is virtue, means what?
Everything is equal.
就是
平等
代说的
yeah, 平等是德 meaning that equanimity. You see
Yeah.
equanimity
Everybody
in
the same.
everything.
In other words, you see everybody the
As a
same as
Buddha.
you, as
Right.
as part of you.
So
you're no
because
different.
after all, what it's like God saying God is what? We call it God. It seems like it's an entity by itself, but yet God is
God is
everything.
everywhere.
Right? God is everywhere. So if you really achieve the state of being a Buddha, you would see everything, anything, sentient beings, whatever, as like yourself.
As
And given
one.
the fact that as oneness,
oneness.
and given that you can see that, or you enlightened to it, you are enlightened to it. There is not even a question of saying, oh yeah, I need to just sit here and relax and whatever. No,
Yeah, that's a practical.
that sounds you're a lonely Buddha.
Yeah, lonely Buddha.
Okay.
Lonely Buddha.
That's why at this moment, right? A lot of Buddha and saints they came in down. Okay.
Because
to reborn.
because after all, you see everybody truly as yourself.
Yeah.
You
There's
truly
no separation, no
you see the true
differentiation.
equanimity of
Yeah, true equanimity.
Yeah.
everything. And so therefore, for you to be a Buddha and
you have to
be able to
reach that
see
level.
that there's others who are not Buddhas means the fact that you are suffering just as much as they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
In that
So
sense.
that's why there's the 4 great vows.
So that's why Buddhists
Imagine
also
life.
make vows, if you want.
Come back,
Buddhists
yeah.
make vows because you can reach a certain level of Buddhahood where you are not affected by samsara, which is reincarnation. Okay, all right.
No,
But
but that's the definition.
But
of
that's
Buddhism.
sort of like the highest form, because other Buddhas, believe it or not, there are levels of Buddhas that has reincarnation. Okay, in the sense that they are still what bounded by
Go to the next class.
yeah
Next
right
No,
yeah.
no, by definition, Buddhahood means you don't.
Yeah. If
no
we use the word
no
Buddhahood,
separation.
it depends on how you define the word Buddha. Yeah.
You're talking
Yeah,
about
Bodhisattva. Okay, because we use the general term Buddha, but really there's Kai had mentioned that in the last class, different levels.
Yeah. Last week.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm now overrunning time, so we'll take. I mean,
But also, I wanted to say because they also have vows.
right,
that they
yeah.
make.
And they make the
Yeah.
vows because they achieve a certain level where they realize that, hey, there is true equanimity between those who are
Well, no.
suffering and themselves.
Yeah. But then people say, well, they make vows as conditioned. It's really not conditioned because that vows, those 4 great vows, flow directly. You can say it's an application. You can say a function, an application, or practice, of their 4 immeasurable minds.
So that's the
四无量心.
Yeah, that's their character.
So 4 immeasurable minds is, you can say it's like their 品质, right? Their character, their quality. That's their quality. Okay, and that's what if we're enlightened, achieve a state of like a Buddha, you have those qualities, right? So then but that's internal because I can't see those qualities. I can't see it, right? We can only say it, but then it's expressed or shown or put into practice or applied through the 4 great vows. Get it? The 4 great. That's why the Trikaya becomes simultaneous. They have the Dharmakaya. That's absolute. Yeah, that's the Dharma Dhatu. They're Dharma Dhatu. The essence, the emptiness, the oneness. But it's also simultaneously as a Buddha, you have Sambhogakaya, 报身, and then 法身, 化身, 化学的化身, transformation, infinite transformation. That's why Buddhas will reincarnate. You get it? I mean, will come down.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, that there's a silver lining, and that silver lining is the fact that you can achieve enlightenment, okay, but you really need to cultivate and learn. That is the only way one can advance, because we still have to go through a process by which we reach the level of what we call enlightenment, okay. And that silver lining is in the sense that yes, you are aware of the fact that hey, there's this things that hey, there's still a time limit, etc. All these things that you talk about, right? These are all forms, okay. the idea is that through learning and cultivation, one can transcend the concept of forms. Okay, if you truly can transcend the concept of forms, yes, what you consider, what we call karma, etc., is no longer, I guess you could say, as relevant in the sense that, because when a Buddha reincarnates, you can say, oh yeah, that Buddha is still born from a baby, etc. He has to grow up, he has to go through all these life experiences and all that stuff. That is true. But for them, from their point of view, we see it as, oh, okay, he got spanked, he got hurt, he got whatever, and he cried and whatever. But from their own perception of this life, it is nothing more than what? An experience. That's all. We call it in Chinese 过程, just an experience, a passing.
Yeah,
Okay.
passing. Yeah.
They still have to go through like what we
Journey.
human. They still have to go. They still have to eat. They still have to go to the bathroom. They still have to sleep. They do that. But for them, they don't see it as the way we see it.
Right. It's different.
And that's the difference. That's why we call, in Chinese, there's another term called 率性. They are in accord with their Buddha nature.
Yeah.
Whereas we are in accord with our human nature. Most of us, anyway. Okay, almost all of us. Okay, and so therefore we perceive life differently. So for them, having to reincarnate, come back, and whatever, for them it's not a reincarnation as we see it, because we see reincarnation, a suffering, a process of life where you have to go through whatever. But from the process they see, it's just an experience. So for them, if you truly can be in tune with 率性, in accordance with Buddha nature, okay, the concepts of transcending the cycle of life, birth, and death is irrelevant. It's not meaningful anymore.
That's the same thing as called 即用沾染 or being and becoming. Get it?
It is.
Being,
It's the same thing.
Oneness,
Yeah, it's
that's
the same
also
thing.
oneness. Being meaning that they're at the absolute state, or they're at one with their Buddha nature, like you say, 率性, right? Buddha nature, they're at one. There's no, the four equanities, all that stuff. And then becoming, that means what? You say reincarnation
Reincarnation,
or whatever.
yeah.
Becoming, being and becoming. Get it? That's
Because we do see, we're human, so therefore and because we are still 住相 means what?
Yeah, we are attached. We are so
to
attached
the form aspect.
to our form.
So therefore we begin to emphasize the forms and therefore begin to be affected by the forms. Okay. Whereas if you truly
Influence.
reach a level of 率性 or being in accordance with your Buddha nature, the experiences are still there. It's not to say, you hit a Buddha, he doesn't feel its pain. No, he feels pain.
Yeah,
Same
they'll
thing.
feel it,
Okay. But it doesn't affect
right, it's a different level.
him
Yeah,
in the
it's a different-
sense that how we see it as pain. So that's why when you can truly be in accordance, you truly can become like a living Buddha.
Yeah.
You become a living Buddha. Okay, and so with this blessing, if you will, and being able to learn about the Tao and cultivate the Tao, you can reach that point. Okay, the question is, of course, when I say reach that point, there's a caveat, meaning the fact that reach that point what? In this now lifetime? Or maybe my next? Okay, it can mean your next. Okay, so I'm sorry I've overran by about 10 minutes. So,
Answer 2 questions.
and I only finished that one question. My God, I wanted to do 5. Okay, so I'm sorry.
5 more classes.
I'm sorry, but because really when you delve
you
into
have to
this
understand,
on the surface,
It's
the
very-
questions,
yeah,
the
it's very-
answers
yeah.
are very simple.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
but then
you go
you
deep.
realize that to understand each concept
Yeah,
that's in the answer,
you have to go
it's
to the
long.
root.
Yeah,
Well,
you have to go really deep.
Yeah, you have to go
to
deep.
the root.
That's why even when
the core.
Holy Teacher does the Chinese, I'm going to assume that even if you're fluent in Chinese and you
Yeah.
read it does not mean you understand it.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not fluent in Chinese, I'm not even proficient in Chinese, and I have to use a dictionary, and I even have a hard time understanding it. But
Yeah.
the point is that when you look at something and if you really put some thought into it, you really can get very deep into it.
Well, let me mention that 10,800 years is actually because, it's God's mercy, God and the Buddha's mercy, because during this time, the time of the white era, the universal
Salvation of 3-1%.
yeah, God, the Buddha has pleaded with God to but anyways, have this amount of time to let people who receive the Tao, they can not reincarnate for that amount of time. But again, we have to cultivate, just like Lena said earlier, we have to cultivate if we want to extend that time.
But why?
We
Why?
definitely have to.
Because you have to offset your
Well, we have karma and stuff like that.
existing
Yeah, yeah.
karma, right?
Yeah, I
Whatever
mean-
karma that we have accumulated.
Right, right.
Right.
I mean, actually, karma will not come about if the conditions are not there.
True.
Okay, so
That's true.
so
That's true.
obviously, if we become suddenly enlightened like a Buddha and we behave as such, then karma will not come to us anymore. Okay, so in essence, that
You
could say-
delayed it. You
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, you
delayed
can,
it.
you know,
Yeah.
to any time that
You postpone it.
you can, yeah, you can say
Because the
postpone
karma is
forever.
still there. That's
I mean,
why.
the seeds of karma are there.
Still there.
Okay, so it's that's just the seed.
Right, it hasn't matured
It
yet.
hasn't matured. So if the conditions are never right,
Right.
it will never mature.
Right,
Okay, so
that's the
that's
key,
a
yeah.
Buddha is in that state.
Right.
Okay, so the whatever karma they may have planted the seeds of may not necessarily.
So
Here.
why? But why? How are you able
we
to
have to
postpone?
you have to be able to cultivate to
the
get to
key-
that level,
well,
reach that.
Yeah, yes, it's through cultivation. But because when you are at the level of a Buddhahood, right? Remember, we talk about that big topic, wisdom. You no longer through our mind, mouth, and body, san, right? The san ye, right? The san ye, right? The three conditions of karma. Remember, that's why it's good to know what the three conditions of karma are, because they are conditions that will lead to karma. If we can become enlightened, like Buddha, like you say, 率性, be at one, etc., etc., then your wisdom will come out such that it will not allow you, or we will not go down the path of the three conditions of karma, i.e., whatever thoughts we have will no longer create karma. Get it? Whatever words we say will no longer create karma.
Because these are all coming from your
Precisely.
wisdom.
Yeah, right. And whatever we do will not create. So if those three things, those three conditions or causes are cut off, right? I mean, you prevent them. You kind of like, right?
Yeah.
Then no secondary conditions will come about. So that even if you have previous karma, will no longer cannot bear fruit, because the conditions, the present conditions, will not lead to that. Get it? Because there's no factors or no fuel to allow the seeds of your previous karma to play out. Get it? Make sense? That's how it works.
Can I give a really that funny example though? You know, I don't like messy, so I see a trash in our car, right? So then when I got out the car, I see it, and my habit was really, I mean, I don't know why I did it, but I would just, so what I did was I just throw it on the floor, and then just split a second, I pick it up and put it back. Because I know I'm not supposed to do that. So I waited until there's a garbage can and I put it back in the room. So I don't know. It's just like it just happened like, you know, one after another. So it's a habit versus cultivation. Okay, you're trying to get rid of the bad habits and stuff.
Okay, so anyway, I like to end here because I've overran time, and I'd like to thank the grace of heaven, the virtue of our predecessors, and the passion of our transmitters that I have this opportunity to present this class. Sorry that I overran time and we only did one question. And I'm sure that
That's very
there are many things that we need to still learn, and I mean, whether I have really satisfactorily present that or not. If I've not done so, I beg the Buddha's forgiveness, and please correct me